Hey, welcome to Waterfed Wednesday.
Whoa, another week already, huh?
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is episode 3. So, yes, Waterfed Wednesday, where we go beyond the bucket and dive into the world of waterfed cleaning, answering questions about our equipment, our business, and our goals of helping cleaners worldwide get the job done faster, safer, and better. So, we're your hosts. I'm Alex Brunner, Sean Gavin. So this week's topic is all about waterfed poles, Tucker poles. We already got people coming in live. We're right now broadcasting to our Facebook business page, our Facebook group page, YouTube, and Instagram. And we got Damien already checking in. You know, Damien, I always have a hard time when I see your last name. So next time, you probably can. Can you say it?
Schreckengost. That's a guess.
How did we do?
That's my first try at that.
Let us know how we did. All right. Yeah. So Tucker waterfed poles. This is a great topic. I was thinking of there's a time after you picked up the Tucker line where we offered quite a variety of poles. And some might remember this back when we had like the RHG line, the Easy Pure line, that we had the Tucker 3K series. Even had for a while the Ultra High Mod Mini, and then of course the Tucker aluminum poles. What kind of made you decide to maybe reduce all those offerings to what we have today?
Yeah. In a lot of ways, the market dictates those kinds of things, right? So when you look at the Easy Pure, that was really kind of branding pre-Tucker. So a lot of the eco range now is what we would have called Easy Pure at the time. But as we see which models sell and, what people ask for, kind of dictates that. So we have everything from, the Sidekick, which is, a couple feet up to 70 foot or so. But something for everybody in between. But yeah, the market really decides that. Aluminum poles, in all reality, when we bought Tucker in 2015 or so, that was a dying breed already at that point. So that sort of phased itself out. But when the market speaks, we try to listen.
Yeah. That's true. There's a loyal following of the old aluminum poles, but those things do a number to your shoulders. So some of the guys that I remember first start getting into waterfed, I even got into it. I'm like, man, this 40 footer is heavy.
Yeah, that's where I started.
And then I remember when I first came on board, we still had the aluminum gutter poles. I went out there, played around with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine doing this full time.
Yeah, for sure.
Now in the reduction, we used to offer the 3K and the smaller sizes. And we still get that question every once in a while. It's like, why don't you offer that like your high mod and say like a mini size or a 30?
Yeah.
It kind of ties to that point you had before, but just can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. I mean, the 3K, that terminology is about the appearance of the carbon fiber itself. So it just has like this checkered pattern. So you've probably seen some poles like that, but generally speaking, that's a cosmetic wrap on the outside of the true carbon fiber material. It's just meant to look cool, right?
Yeah.
And so let's say 90% of the pole section is made up of the material you want to get the performance out of the pole, and then you wrap it with something just to get a cool look. Well, you only got 90% of the performance when you could have just went with a flat matte black, right?
Yeah.
So we did away with the 3K for that reason once we really started to focus on narrowing the range down and being all about performance. Why we don't make high mod 30, 40, 50 footers is mostly based on the fact that the volume of them would be fairly low, right? And
Yeah.
we're a volume manufacturer, a volume supplier, right? So, if there's a number of people that want them, what they tend to do is they'll get a 50 footer and just break it down and go to shorter lengths. But the reality is at 30 foot with standard carbon fiber, you really don't have that much of a difference from a performance standpoint when it comes to high mod. Your weight's going to be about the same. There's not a lot of flex comparison, right? And so why pay all that extra money?
Yeah.
Even at 40 foot, it's kind of marginal what you're going to get from a performance standpoint. High modulus versus standard modulus carbon fiber. So really, when we started looking at that, anything under 30 foot, you can get away with a hybrid material. And so we really just kind of try and build the product to that height specific performance and the user experience.
Cool. Going back to Facebook, Damon said perfect, so you nailed it.
Oh, very nice.
And he agrees. Aluminum poles were so heavy.
Yeah. I remember starting out with those and thinking, oh my goodness, there's got to be a better way.
Absolutely. And we found it. So let's talk a little bit about the Tucker poles. Maybe you can answer this. What are some of the features that set us apart from the rest of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's, to my knowledge, we're still the only manufacturer that is making the product in the United States. And so it's kind of like, well, what does that mean? How do you quantify that, right? I mean, if we look at this Tucker Junior, for instance, the only thing that we import is the actual tubes themselves. And the only reason we do that is for, purely economics, right? If we tried to get these carbon fiber tubes in the United States, the poles would be 3-4 times the cost. So can they be made in the US? Yes. But the reality is it's going to drive up the price. But, we bring those tubes in and then we have all the clamps. The levers are made by us. The clamping system was designed and made by us, essentially, right? We really designed the clamp to work for window cleaners, not just with the tubes. And so most of the poles that are coming out of the other countries, essentially, you've got carbon fiber tube manufacturers. They develop a clamp for their tube. It could be for a camera system. It could be for anything, right? It's not necessarily for a window cleaner on a professional level. And so some of the brands are doing that from a design standpoint, but a lot of these poles that are coming in from China and elsewhere, you'll look at the clamps and they're all the same clamp. From one label to the next. And then, on the clamp, it probably mentions who the Chinese manufacturer of the tube is, right? And so that's just sort of a private labeled pole that's being offered to the window cleaning market. And when we set out to do what we wanted to do with the clamps and the poles, I mean, we really started at the clamp. And this is our V2 clamp. This is our second iteration. The first clamp definitely was not where we wanted it to be, but we were in a bit of a rush to market standpoint in the transition for Tucker, right? And so when we were able to spend a lot of time really developing this clamp, we put a lot of thought into it. Most operators are right-handed. I'm right-handed. And so from a use standpoint, you're going to have your right hand down lower than your left. That makes the lever, to where you want to be able to open it this way. It's counterintuitive for me anyway, from a design standpoint and a user standpoint, to go the other direction, which is where every other lever on the market is coming from that I looked at when we were developing this. So it's just kind of ease of use there. The clamps themselves, obviously they've got some design elements to them. If you look close at it, there's some ridge and spine, but a lot of times where clamps break, and maybe this is better seen on a larger clamp, but a lot of times where the clamps break is basically right between the top and the bottom half, because the sections are flexing in there, right? So you're getting this weak point right at that. So what we did was we designed all this kind of like structural or spinal area in here. So when it tries to flex there, there's a lot of material pushing up against that force and not allowing that to happen. And then you see a lot of clamps bust at the back, right? So we built in this ridge or this spine back here for that. The other features built in with the clamps basically are, when it comes to material, we looked at a lot of different materials. You can actually mold carbon fiber. We played around with that for a while because they're really strong, but they don't have much spring to the openness of it, right? So we got away from that standpoint. But there's a lot of adjustability in the clamp itself. So this area here, in between one side to the other, from left to right on the clamp body, you want to have a lot of adjustability over the life of the pole. And with a 10-year warranty, you got to have the ability for that clamp to adjust in a long way. Other manufacturers are sticking a spring in there to try and get that open. So instead of designing something that came out of the mold closed and you needed a spring to open it up, we designed it to where it was open and the lever itself does all the closing. So, we just put a lot of thought into, the user's experience, how it works. And I feel like it's really built for the professional window cleaner rather than just a clamping system from a carbon fiber tube manufacturer.
Yeah, all good points because I remember the previous RHG clamping system. Um, yeah, you have to think about as carbon fiber wears over time. It's basically getting a little smaller, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't much play, so you can tighten it as much as you wanted to, but it was still kind of spinning. So by including that gap in there over time, you have that adjustability. So that is great. And then that was I remember that being an issue out in the field, but this reinforcement is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, in years past, in the field, using water fed poles before we really got into manufacturing, I remember this gap was so marginal that I would have to take a file and just work plastic
Yeah.
material away just to open it up. So, all those kind of like user experiences, and then you go into manufacturing rather than kind of the other way around where you're a manufacturer trying to create something for someone. I think it really helped us develop a product that is something we can be really proud of.
Right on. So it looks like we've got new people joining in. So just to reiterate, we are on episode number 3 talking about Tucker water-fed poles. We've kind of gone over why we gone down with such a large offering to what we have right now. So if you're just catching up or logging in, feel free. We're going to have to watch this later. We're going to keep these live streams up on our channels so you can review. Let's see. Window cleaners of Brandon. Looks like it's a little bit rainy in Tampa. I have no doubt that you guys will be out there cleaning again
soon enough. Yeah,
soon enough.
Absolutely.
Great weather.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Damien mentioned something in the Facebook group, and we're actually going to talk about that. Actually, he mentioned super cool how the bottom section of poles don't conduct electricity. So my next question was, what is the reasoning behind the yellow base section? So that kind of goes into that.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we're really focused on here is, the idea of people first, right? As a company culture, whether it's our employees, our teammates here, our customers that we deal with, thinking about their families, all these kinds of things. And years ago, I was approached by Mike Draper, who's really into safety in the window cleaning and pressure wash solar community. And he said, we'd known each other for a long time. And he said, somebody needs to tackle this issue of, the poles conducting the electricity. And so I was very hesitant to even approach it because as a manufacturer, you don't really want to have this kind of mindset that you can create a product that essentially makes it so you don't have to pay attention to job site safety, right? Which is not what we're set out to do. But, Mike went down the path of taking our poles and having a third party company do testing on the isolation factor of the base section. And shortly after that, we came out with the yellow sections. Right on the poles themselves, there's a QR code that also talks about drop zones, right? So if you scan this, there's a video of Mike Draper. And what the reason we put this on here is because a lot of our customers that are buying from us are a business owner. They'll buy the pole, they'll pass it on to an employee, and the employee doesn't know anything about one thing to the next, depending on one company to the next in terms of their safety program. So we put this on there for the actual user. So when you scan that, it doesn't talk about the features of this being able to isolate the section or the electricity if there's an accident. It talks about how to avoid that from ever happening, right? So, and it's important to understand, it's kind of in a lab, you can test this and prove it, right? Now, if you get out in the field and you're working at 30, 40, 50 feet, and something starts to happen where you start to lose the pole and it's going to make contact with a power line, and now you're going to have a problem. Most people are not holding on to the pole and just thinking all the way down, okay, no problem. What actually tends to happen is you end up reaching up higher to try and control the pole. And once you take that hand off of the insulated base section and you reach up higher, what you're doing is you're removing that entire factor that's built in, right? And so definitely things can happen in terms of like one scenario to the next. But if you follow the guidelines that are set out by OSHA and otherwise about safe job site practices, this is just something that's built in to be hopefully a measure that protects someone in case of an accident. But the reality is if you're in that situation, you've already gone through a scenario that you shouldn't have put yourself into.
Right.
And so it's tricky, right? We don't really market the poles that way. We don't want anybody to think that it's kind of a license to do whatever and not pay attention to safety protocols. But it was something that Mike wanted us to do at the time. And, he definitely saw that through in terms of the third-party testing in the US, right? These sections come out of, China, like all the other poles do. And if you reach out to them and you say, will this do this? They just send you some information back that says, yeah, no problem. And we didn't want to trust it, right? Mike looked at it as we really should test this. And so, he went down that path. But there's 101 different variables that can put you in a position where that is not going to be something that helps.
Yeah.
And to be fair and to be honest, there's a number of poles on the market that have that feature built in. So it's not unique to us. And I'm glad to see other manufacturers step up and build that in. But it's not really something that we go out and we market as a feature of the product.
Yeah. I remember when I get a lot of calls about it, asking about that feature and like, oh, that means I can work by power lines. Absolutely not. I mean,
Right.
like, that's not what we're saying. It's just an added safety feature, but you never want to just rely on that. Like you said, always follow guidelines. Maybe set expectations with your customers. You're doing your walkthrough. You should be walking through anyways, especially if you have employees. You try to mitigate these safety hazards and explain to them, hey, I'm going to get all your windows except for this one or these set because there's power lines right here and safety comes first. So
yeah, you put your, what do they call it? The JHA, right?
Yeah.
The job hazard analysis together, right? So anytime you go look at these projects and, a lot of times we get busy, right? It's like, I mean, nowadays the software does the bidding for you. You don't even go look at it. But a lot of times what needs to happen is there needs to be a JHA, as I think that's the terminology for really looking at the job, especially if you're an owner and you're going out and you're looking at it and then you're going to send a guy out to do it. And you really got to be safety minded. And we have an approach that is along those lines. We really want, everybody to be able to come home at the end of the day and get back to their family safely.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Anyone else checking in? We got Under the Sun Property Care checking in on Instagram. What up, boys? What up to you? Hopefully you're having a great day out there. All right, let's get back in some of these questions that I had here. Let's see. So this is something we often get asked about too. So when it comes to choosing a pole, what is more important, or weight or rigidity? A lot of times guys they associate carbon fiber poles with just lightweight, right?
Yeah. So, we publish all the specs on the website, right? You can see the weights. We put them on scales. We report the information. The tubes themselves. Let's see if I can get a tube here that we can kind of look at. The tubes themselves all have an outside or a wall thickness itself, right? So the thickness of the tube, like the wall thickness, we call it. And this looks a little exaggerated because in the bottom of each of our sections is a plastic component to protect the carbon fiber from the ground should you drop a section like I just did. And that's another important factor too, right? You remove that fiberglass section that's on the bottom. Now you've got carbon fiber or hybrid material, and now the insulator that could have protected you is no longer there. So, but we build these in. So it's a little exaggerated, but you can see there's a wall thickness to every tube. And that's part of the specs when you're looking into manufacturing, right? It's nothing anybody would say from a, shopping standpoint, or nothing we would ever publish. But as a manufacturer, you know what this wall thickness is. And that wall thickness is the only way that you can actually make a pole lighter is to remove wall thickness, right? Carbon fiber, that's standard carbon fiber, standard modulus, is the same weight as high modulus carbon fiber. So it weighs the same. So the only way you're getting rigidity out of the standard versus the high modulus is the high modulus has more rigidity by nature, right? And so those poles weigh the same though, right? So when you get into weights, it's like, well, this is the lightest pole in the market. It never really impressed me when somebody could say it was the lightest pole in the market, because to me, as someone who understands the manufacturing of this, that means they removed material from the wall, which essentially does make it lighter. But the result of that is you've made it less strong, right?
Yeah.
You've made it more susceptible to break. When you hit this section on a windowsill or up against, tree limbs over and over and over again, it's more likely now for this to get a stress crack and fracture and then bust. But that's really the only way that you can make the pole itself lighter. The materials are all basically the same weight. The real difference from one material to the other is the rigidity.
Yeah. Had something in my mind and just slipped.
Gotcha,
Right.
huh? Slipped out.
Well, yeah, everybody's that gets focused on the lightweightness of it. Like, oh, this pole's so lightweight, and it might be fine for them. And then they get employees, and what are they going to do?
Yeah,
They don't treat it as nice.
Yeah,
and they drop it, and next thing you know, it breaks in half. It's not, it's more in line that lightweight first, built for, as we have on our hats, designed for the pros. So that's what we design it for, taking a beating.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely, there's that urge, every once in a while I'm like, well, we'll just make the lightest, stiffest pole in the market, it's kind of go back to that mentality. And then it's like, oh, right, we've looked into this, and this is all about like bragging rights. But as an end user, you're not going to notice when you're using our poles any sort of feeling that it would be nice if it was lighter, right? And so making it lighter just makes it so that person that invested in that is somewhat susceptible to having a problem with it in the future. And so, we've kind of settled on where we're at with that, and we've done it for the last 7-8 years, so it seems to be working quite well for us.
Cool. One thing I wanted to get into, it's kind of extension to the water fed pole, and that's the extendable goosenecks. So can you explain the extendable goosenecks, maybe point out some of the latest features? This is something we've had since 2021.
Yeah, we've had these for a number of years now. So essentially, you've got this is the standard gooseneck that's going to come with our poles, right? So it locks down into the number 1 section. Okay, you've got a plastic adjustable gooseneck, and then that locks into the brushes, right? This is our locked gooseneck socket.
Lock brush,
so you've got this ability to lock in and adjust, and that's mostly like 95% of the residential guys, really, that's enough for them, right? The ability to get over that little windowsill, that little ledge, and do that. And you can see the way this really attaches here is, we've got the locked system out now, that basically you come through here, you lock it in, and so your brush is locked on, right? No twisting anymore, trying to find that perfect angle of the thread. And then, you have, this is going to get into the locked features and everything here, but I'll get into the gooseneck. You have a 95 degree or a 45 degree angle that you can lock this in as well, because it's an octagon shape, not a square like others that are on the market. And then you can lock it at 90 degrees here, right? So you can lock it in 3 positions. Okay. So that's the plastic gooseneck. Now,
you went real quick. We
ahead.
Talked about this one beforehand, mentioned about the reach around.
Oh yeah. The reach around gooseneck, right? So this was the first product that we ever produced, probably going back to 2008, 2009. This was the first plastic injection molded product we did. But when I came out with it, I basically wanted the ability to put a squeegee on the back of the pole, right? So you've got this wood cone tip you can thread on there. You can really thread any accessory that is Euro threaded onto this. And so some people will just, take the brush off, pull the hose out, and use this as an extension pole with that tip there. But what I wanted it for was I would stick a squeegee on here.
I forgot to bring one in.
We forgot the Sorbo. Yeah, so
available at
TuckerUSA.com. I would slide a squeegee on here for jobs where I was working in an area where it was really dusty and windy, right? So you're up water feeding, the windows, and as they're drying, you got all these water droplets, and this dust and dirt is in the air, and it gets into your water droplets. And before it can dry, it's turning to mud or whatever, right? So we would put a squeegee on the backside, we'd scrub and rinse the window, flip it over, and then pull the water right off the glass with the squeegee, right?
Yeah.
It didn't have to be perfectly squeegee. You could have that line there on the edges or whatever, but it was going to dry clear because you pulled all the water off, and now that dust wasn't getting in your drops. So, we've got that. We've got the little walnut pad scrubber that you can thread on there that comes with all of our kits. So you can flip the brush over, scrub bird droppings or whatever if your brush isn't cutting it that day. So accessories along those lines. But back to the carbon fiber gooseneck, essentially these lock in to the number 1 section in the same way. So we've got a union fitting here that connects to your pole tubing that's running through the pole. Run that down, lock it into the number 1 section. Open that up a little bit. Lock that down in the number 1 section. And then you basically have a carbon fiber gooseneck, super lightweight, but this one here, I forget the exact specs on the length, but essentially you've got the adjustability to have it compact like that or open it up. So I think it's like a 12 to 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's a little red line on the carbon fiber. It tells you don't overextend because then you're going to bust that off. Yeah. But we've got 3 different sizes for them. So it gets, I think, up to maybe 3 feet or something like that.
Sorry.
So on the tip of the carbon fiber, you've got the same number 1 clamp as the pole. And so this is our new locked adapter tip. It slides in there, and then you're able to basically just connect your brush the same way you can to the plastic adjustable goosenecks. Just pull the locked adapter and slide it right on, right? So now you've got it on the end of your carbon fiber poles or your carbon fiber gutter, carbon fiber gooseneck. And so adjustable there, right? So from this 12 to 16 all the way up to the 36 footer, and then you just connect your water line right here, pull some of that back into your pole so it's not all out here. But again, you've got that 3 adjustment angles. You've got the standard angle right here. You've got a 45 and you've got a 90 with the new Tucker locked gooseneck heads.
Cool. Very cool. So if you have a lot of commercial work, got some deep ledges, we got you covered up to 3 feet. Paul Gaston checking in.
Hey, Paul, how's it going? Paul was my the first customer of a water-fed cart ever.
Yes.
Yeah, we go way back.
And that cart's still around here.
The cart is in my office. Yeah.
Cool. Well, can you believe it? It's already 4:01 here.
4:01.
It's 6:01 on the East Coast time. Looked like we had a great question by window cleaner Brandon, but unfortunately we won't be able to tackle it right this second, but we're definitely going to keep that for next podcast, next episode. So certainly loved having you guys here joining us today for Waterfed Wednesday. Our topic today was Tucker poles. So once again, if you just are coming in, feel free to watch these later. We're going to have them up on our Facebook business page, Facebook group page. Obviously Instagram, we won't be able to watch it again, and also our YouTube channel.
Man, I'm chomping at the bit to get to that RO question though.
Yeah.
I think we touched on a little bit of that in a prior,
we did.
prior episode. So maybe go back, maybe episode 1 and look at that, but definitely send us questions. You can put questions in this feed.
Yeah.
Obviously if we're going to try and do this every week for the most part, unless we're out, we're going to need a lot of content. So send us questions. We'll try to address it. And even if we have a week where we don't have necessarily a topic that we can hit the whole thing on, maybe we just knock out 5-6 great questions we've been saving up.
Absolutely. So Thanks again for joining us. Hope you guys have a fantastic week. See you
Yep.
next time.
Take care, guys. Be safe.